over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled, Welcome to the Anthropocene, the Age of Human Die-Offs. And I guess the largest point that I'm making in this article is that we have been living in, for the past couple hundred years, in large part because of our ability to use fossil fuels to increase our capacity to grow food. We have been living in a halcyon era, in an era of extraordinary prosperity and health. And I mean, even the poorest in the world are better off than the poorest in the world were 100 years ago or 200 years ago. We convert fossil fuels into fertilizer, which allows us to grow more food on the same amount of land. We convert fossil fuels into pesticides and herbicides, which allow us to outcompete our competitors, the weeds and the bugs. The result of this is that, you know, we've gone from more than 70% of us being farmers 200 years ago to only 2% of us being farmers now, because our land has become so productive as a consequence of our use of fossil fuels. And guess what? Fossil fuels are becoming harder to get, harder to find, more expensive to produce, and they're destroying our planet. Now, this possibility that we are facing, in fact, I would say probability, that we are facing large-scale food shortages around the world. There's already famine going on in several countries in the world as we speak. But I'm talking about large-scale, like as in not just 2 or 3 countries, but dozens, maybe eventually hundreds of countries. And here in the United States, the depopulation of large parts of the United States. When Lake Mead is gone, when you know, what's that going to do? We've got the Colorado River's drying up. Jim Turr sent me a note this morning with a picture of the Rio Grande in New Mexico. It's just a trickle now. I mean, this is seriously impacting our ability to grow food, because these rivers and these reservoirs are the source of water that we use to irrigate our crops. Irrigation is another thing, again, you know, provided by fossil fuels. It's not, you know, it's not being irrigated with oil, but the pumps that get the water to the fields and put the water on the fields are all run by generally, you know, either electricity or gasoline, and the electricity more often than not is made from fossil fuels. So here we are. Now, other cultures have experienced these kinds of population crashes as a consequence of running out of their food supply in the past. Probably the most well-documented one is the Maori people of New Zealand, who, you know, 800 or 900 years ago first discovered that island. They were Melanesian sailors, and they discovered, you know, 103,000 square mile island, New Zealand, and spent the next couple hundred years eating all the moa birds. These are giant birds like ostriches, only they weigh as much as 500 pounds. And you could just walk up to them and break their necks and eat them. And so for hundreds of years, the Maori just spread all across the island, and their population exploded, and the moa birds got fewer and became fewer and fewer and fewer until finally, all 12 species, they ate the last moa bird, this great extinction. And the consequence of that great extinction was that the Maori went from being a very peaceful people. In fact, in the archaeological record, there's literally no evidence of warfare during the first 300 years that they occupied New Zealand. None. They were a peaceful people. They didn't have spears and bows and arrows. They didn't need them. You could just walk up to a bird and break its neck and have dinner. But when the Moa were all gone, the Maori started, you know, they changed, their culture changed. It became a warlike society. They began building forts all over the island. They would, you know, when one war party went against another war party, they would bring food on the hoof, a captured prisoner. They had descended into cannibalism. Now, that was a local event. We also saw in North America, there's a new book out, I was reading it over this last weekend, that's just an amazing book. It's titled, hang on just a second, I'll get the title for you. Here it is, First Peoples in the New World, Populating Ice Age America by David Meltzer. It's just an amazing book, First Peoples in the New World. And he talks about how, I mean, we now have DNA tracking, right, for all these Aboriginal people, these indigenous people of North America. And there were dozens of tribes that had unique, distinct DNA signatures that literally no longer exist because they lived in parts of North America where the climate changed. This was the tail end of the Ice Age. The climate changed and all the food went away. And they died out. They literally died out. Periodic famine has been the norm for humanity throughout most of our history. But now we don't have the option that many people around the world have. I mean, you're seeing climate refugees right now. Guatemalan climate refugees are showing up at our southern border. Syrian climate refugees are showing up in Italy and Greece. We've got, Bangladeshi climate refugees are showing up throughout that region. But we're running out of places to go because now climate change is not local, it's affecting the entire planet. Yes, it's affecting different places more vigorously than other places. Now, one of the stories, one of the learnings that I got out of this and out of this study, and I've been really digging into the Native American history of America for the last, I don't know, month or two since I've been writing this new book, The Hidden History of American Democracy, because so much of our democracy was grounded on things like the Iroquois Confederacy and the Wendat people. But digging into it, one of the things that I've learned is that a lot of anthropologists believe that one of the reasons that so many Native American societies had sustainability as their highest value, from low reproduction rates to maintaining their food supply, was because they had suffered through periods of famine in the past when they basically overkilled the local fauna and flora. So the question, and I wrap this article with this question, is, will we, like the ancient Maori, devolve into an authoritarian and war-based society? Well, Donald Trump gave a speech last night that gives us a clue to that. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Or will we, like the Iroquois or the Hopi or the Wendat people, make a conscious decision to live within our means, to stop destroying our environment, to fine-tune our governmental systems to meet the needs of all of our citizens? I mean, we're not without resources, and I would never bet against human ingenuity. But on the other hand, we're facing an unprecedented level of avarice mobilized by billionaires and corporations with more power and wealth than the world has literally ever seen before. Are they going to win and in the process set human civilization back millennia? Or will we, humanity, prevail over the forces of greed and destruction and help salvage our biosphere while reinventing our culture and our world? I mean, the hour is late. Scientists tell us it's not too late, but it's damn late. Our fate and that of the planet is still in our hands. We've got a lot of work to do, my friends. Let's get started.